The Trump family has been making headlines for years, but there's one person who's managed to stay out of the spotlight. Until now. At just 18, Vanessa Trump's daughter has finally spoken up, and what she's saying is shaking things up in a big way. This isn't just another Trump family drama. It's personal, raw, and could change everything. So, what made her break her silence? And why now? Let's dive into a story the Trumps definitely didn't see coming. Vanessa Trump has spent years shielding her children from the whirlwind that comes with being part of the Trump name. While her ex-husband Donald Trump Jr. thrives in the political spotlight and her sister-in-law Ivanka carefully curates her public image, Vanessa chose a different path. She focused on raising her kids quietly, away from the cameras and the controversy. But that all just changed, big time. Because now, at 18, her oldest daughter has decided to speak up. And let's just say it's not exactly a glowing tribute to the Trump legacy. So, what's she saying? And why now? Well, here's the thing. Growing up as a Trump isn't like growing up in a normal family. There's power, politics, and relentless media attention whether you want it or not. For years, Vanessa made sure her kids didn't get pulled into any of that. No campaign speeches, no reality TV stunts, no MAGA rallies, just private schools, vacations, and a life that from the outside seemed pretty normal. But now, her daughter has a voice of her own, and she's ready to use it. According to sources, the ones who actually know what's happening behind the scenes, she's been feeling the weight of her last name for years. And honestly, she's done with it. She's sick of smiling for staged holiday photos at Mar-a-Lago, tired of the expectation to be the perfect Trump, and most of all, she's fed up with keeping quiet. And let's be real, she's got a point. While Ivanka and Donald Jr. embraced the Trump brand, Vanessa's daughter never signed up for any of this. Now that she's 18, she's making it crystal clear, she's not playing by the family's rules, and she's not just pulling away, she's spilling details. The kind of stuff the Trump family would rather keep buried. And let's just say, the picture she's painting of her father and grandfather, it's far from flattering. That leads to the big question. How is the Trump family reacting to all of this? Well, as you can imagine, they're not exactly thrilled. Donald Jr., who's always been big on loyalty, is taking this personally. And Vanessa, she's stuck in the middle. Does she stand by her daughter's decision to speak her truth, or does she try to keep the peace with the rest of the family? And let's not forget about Donald Trump himself. If there's one thing the man hates, it's bad press, especially when it comes from his own family. So, will he ignore it? Or are we about to witness some classic Trump-style damage control? Either way, one thing's for sure, this isn't just some teenage rebellion. This is the next generation of Trumps rewriting the family's story. And by the time it's all said and done, the Trump legacy might look very different. Stay tuned, because this is just getting started. At first glance, Vanessa Trump and Donald Trump Jr. seemed like the perfect political power couple. Young, glamorous, and living a high-profile life. But if there's one thing we've learned about the Trump family, it's that what happens behind closed doors is always way more interesting than what they let the world see. And when it comes to Vanessa and Donald Jr., the truth is even juicier than the headlines ever suggested. The two first met in the early 2000s at a glitzy New York fashion event. Vanessa was a model at the time, and Donald Jr.? Well, he was the heir to one of the most controversial business empires in the world. On paper, they were a perfect match, or at least that's how it seemed. By 2005, they tied the knot in true Trump fashion, with a lavish wedding at Mar-a-Lago, packed with billionaires, politicians, and high society elites. Vanessa looked stunning in her elegant gown, while Donald Trump Jr. was his usual polished self. For a while, everything seemed picture perfect. But here's the thing. Life inside the Trump world isn't for the faint of heart. Vanessa quickly realized that being a Trump wife wasn't just about smiling for the cameras and attending lavish events. It was a full-time role, and not always a glamorous one. As Donald Jr. took on bigger responsibilities in the family business, Vanessa was left to hold down the fort at home. Over the course of 12 years, they had 5 children together, and she found herself juggling the chaos of motherhood while her husband was out making business deals and eventually carving out his own place in politics. But behind the scenes, cracks were already forming. Insiders say Vanessa never fully bought into the political circus that consumed Donald Jr. By the time his father launched his presidential campaign in 2016, their marriage was already on shaky ground. While Donald Jr. was out giving fiery speeches and rallying the most loyal Trump supporters, Vanessa was at home, doing her best to keep their children as far away from the chaos as possible. And by 2018, just 2 years after Donald Trump became president, it was clear the fairy tale was over. Their divorce played out in the public eye, with rumors swirling about everything from financial stress to Donald Jr.'s alleged affairs. But the final straw? Reports that Vanessa had been blindsided by her husband's deepening involvement in politics and his increasing closeness to conservative influencers. Some even speculated that Donald Jr.'s growing friendships with right-wing media figures had become more important to him than his own marriage. And just like that, Vanessa was done. Done with the media frenzy, done with the scandals, and done with the Trump name. While other Trump exes kept a foot in the public spotlight, Vanessa took the opposite approach. She completely vanished from the headlines, choosing instead to focus on raising her children, far from the Trump empire. Unlike Ivanka's kids, who were growing up in billion-dollar penthouses and being groomed for high society, Vanessa's children lived a much more low-key life. Private schools, after-school sports, normal childhood experiences, no political rallies, no carefully staged family photo ops. Just a simple, ordinary upbringing. And here's the thing. She wasn't the only one in the Trump family who chose this path. Melania Trump, Donald's third wife, took a similar approach with her own son, Barron. In fact, some say Melania's decision to keep Barron out of the spotlight influenced Vanessa's choice to do the same with her kids. Unlike other members of the Trump family, Vanessa almost never posted about her children on social media. She barely mentioned them in interviews and made sure they weren't being used as political props. Her goal was simple: give them as normal a life as possible. And for years, she succeeded. Until now. So what changed? Why is Vanessa's daughter finally breaking her silence after all this time? Well, from what we're hearing, this isn't just about teenage rebellion or stepping out of her mother's protective bubble. This is bigger. Sources close to the family say she's struggled with the weight of her last name for years. Because being a Trump isn't just about family, it's about image, branding, and legacy. No matter how hard Vanessa tried to protect her kids from it, there was only so much she could do. Imagine growing up with a last name that instantly sparks controversy, no matter where you go. Imagine constantly being compared to your cousins, who were raised inside the Trump inner circle, while you're just trying to carve out your own identity. Imagine being expected to uphold a family reputation that you never signed up for. That has been her reality. And now, she's had enough. Word on the street is that Vanessa's daughter has grown increasingly frustrated with the expectation that she should stay silent, while the rest of the Trump family continues their high-profile antics. And even though she hasn't been as involved in the political world as her cousins, she's been paying attention. She's been watching how the Trump name is used, how the media covers them, and, most importantly, how her own father has built his entire brand on being one of the loudest voices in the room. If anything, she's questioning it. And that's a serious problem in a family where loyalty isn't just valued, it's a requirement. In the Trump world, sticking together isn't optional, it's the rule. The moment you break from that expectation, you become an outsider. And right now, that's exactly what's happening. So, how is the Trump family handling this? Well, let's just say they're not thrilled. Donald Jr., who has spent years preaching about the importance of family unity, isn't exactly celebrating the fact that his daughter is shaking things up. Sources say he's doing everything in his power to keep the situation from spiraling out of control. But let's be real. This isn't something that can just be swept under the rug. And then there's Vanessa. Stuck in the middle, she fully supports her daughter's independence but also wants to avoid a full-scale public family war. And of course, there's Donald Trump himself. If there's one thing he can't stand, it's bad press, especially when it comes from inside his own family. So, how will he handle it? Will he stay silent? Try to spin the story in his favor? Fire off one of his signature social media rants? Knowing Trump, it's only a matter of time before he addresses it. But here's the bigger picture. This isn't just another Trump family headline. This is something different. This is the next generation stepping up, rewriting the family's legacy in real time. And whether they like it or not, Vanessa's daughter just sent a clear message. She's not here to follow the script. She's here to tear it up. And if you think this story is over, think again, because this is just the beginning. But before we go any further, let's take a detour into something even more personal. Could Vanessa's daughter's decision to speak out be linked to her relationship with her father? In the Trump family, there's never a shortage of drama, whether it's political battles, high society scandals, or personal relationships unfolding under the public eye. But one story that often gets overshadowed is the relationship between Donald Trump Jr. and his daughter, Kai Madison Trump. Growing up as a Trump comes with its own set of challenges, so what was life really like for Kai? And how did her father's political ambitions shape their dynamic? For years, the world has seen Donald Jr. as his father's most vocal and devoted supporter, fiercely defending Trump-era politics and making a name for himself in conservative circles. But beyond the fiery social media posts and headline-making rallies, he's also a dad. A dad to 5 kids, to be exact. And like any divorced parents, Donald Jr. and Vanessa had to figure out how to co-parent, except they had to do it with the whole world watching. He's loud in politics, but was he as present in his children's lives? Behind all the speeches and controversies, what was Donald Jr. really like at home? The answer might surprise you. If you look at Donald Jr.'s public image, he portrays himself as a hands-on father. His social media is packed with photos of hunting trips, vacations, and sweet family moments. But let's be honest, posting about your kids online and actually being there for them are two very different things. Over the years, there has been speculation that Vanessa was the one truly holding down the fort, especially during Donald Jr.'s most politically active years. When his father's campaign took off in 2016, Donald Jr. was constantly on the road, speaking at rallies, defending Trump's policies, and battling critics online. Meanwhile, Vanessa was the one making sure their kids had a sense of normalcy, shielding them from the chaos that came with being a Trump. And after their divorce in 2018, things only got more complicated. Co-parenting is never easy, but for Donald Jr. and Vanessa, their political differences may have made it even harder. While Vanessa largely retreated from the spotlight after their split, insiders suggest that she and Donald Jr. didn't always see eye to eye, especially when it came to politics. Though she never publicly voiced her political views, there were always murmurs that Vanessa wasn't nearly as invested in politics as her ex-husband. Unlike Donald Jr., who has fully embraced his role as a walking Trump brand ambassador, Vanessa chose to step back from the limelight entirely after their divorce. But that raises a bigger question. How did that decision affect their children, especially their eldest, Kai? For any co-parenting arrangement to work, there has to be some kind of balance. And when one parent is as publicly vocal about politics as Donald Jr. is, that balance becomes a little trickier to maintain. His approach to life has always been aggressive, quick to spark controversy, call out his critics, and lean into the combative nature of the political world. Vanessa, on the other hand, has always been the quieter, more traditional figure in their children's lives. Sure, their divorce settlement made it clear that both wanted to keep things amicable, but raising kids under the glare of a political dynasty isn't exactly smooth sailing. As the eldest, Kai likely witnessed firsthand the stark differences between her parents. And while she may not have been as publicly visible as her father, being born into the Trump family means you're never entirely out of the public eye. Even if she wanted to live a low-profile life, there's no escaping the weight of that last name. Now, when it comes to Trump grandchildren, it's clear that not all of them experience the same reality. Take Ivanka Trump's children, for example. Raised in a world of extreme privilege, attending elite schools, mingling with world leaders, and growing up surrounded by luxury. With a mother who served as a senior White House advisor and a father who comes from billionaire real estate money, they've been immersed in the high-powered world of politics and wealth since birth. Kai, however, has had a much quieter upbringing. Sure, she still carries the Trump name and all the scrutiny that comes with it, but Vanessa worked hard to keep her children grounded. While her cousins were being photographed at White House events and high-profile galas, Kai was leading a much more private life. Of course, she still enjoys a life of privilege, but it's clear her mother prioritized normalcy over publicity. It's an interesting contrast. The larger-than-life Trump empire on one side and a more reserved, understated branch of the family on the other. Kai Madison Trump's breaking point, stepping out of the shadows and confronting the Trump legacy. Kai Madison Trump, the eldest daughter of Donald Jr. and Vanessa Trump, has always been a bit of a mystery. A Trump by name, but not someone who ever fully stepped into the family's spotlight. You might recognize her name, but you probably wouldn't immediately recognize her face. She's been present but never at the center of attention. That is, until now. Whispers are swirling that Kai is ready to step forward. But why now? What changed? What was the moment that pushed her to finally break her silence? Being part of the Trump dynasty was never going to be normal. It didn't matter that Vanessa tried to shield her children from the chaos, or that Kai wasn't splashed across tabloids like some of her cousins. The truth is, when your grandfather is Donald Trump, privacy isn't really an option. From the moment she was born in 2007, Kai's name quietly echoed through the Trump family narrative. As the first grandchild, she represented the next generation of the dynasty, but her upbringing was vastly different from that of Ivanka's kids. While they were wrapped in designer clothes, attending exclusive social gatherings, and making appearances at the White House, Kai was growing up in a far more subdued environment. Vanessa, who had her own history in the spotlight as a model and actress, made a deliberate choice to keep her children as far away from the political firestorm as possible. But no matter how much she tried, there were some things even she couldn't control. Social media changed the game, and even if Kai wasn't making headlines, she was always there, just subtly in the background. Whether it was popping up in family gatherings, appearing on the edges of Ivanka's meticulously curated Instagram posts, or being glimpsed at Mar-a-Lago events, she was never quite the center of attention, but never fully invisible either. And with that came a strange reality, being part of one of the world's most famous families, while also feeling like a stranger in her own story. The Trump family has long operated under an unspoken rule: loyalty above all else. To carry the name means to protect the brand, present a unified front, and never publicly question the narrative. For years, Kai followed along. She didn't seek out attention, never leveraged the family name for personal gain, and remained quiet, much like her uncle, Baron Trump. But staying silent doesn't mean being absent, because behind closed doors the struggle was all too real. Imagine growing up in an environment where opinions weren't just personal, they made headlines. Where your grandfather's words could send the stock market into a spiral, where your father was one of the country's most polarizing political figures, and where your own thoughts, whatever they may have been, had to be kept under wraps because one wrong statement, one slip, could turn you into a target overnight. The weight of expectation must have been suffocating. So, did Kai agree with everything her family stood for? Did she even have the space to figure that out for herself? From the moment she was old enough to understand the magnitude of her last name, she was already representing something bigger than herself, whether she wanted to or not. She wasn't just another teenager trying to carve out her identity. She was a Trump grandchild, the daughter of one of the most outspoken supporters of MAGA politics. A young woman growing up in a world that had already decided who she was supposed to be. The pressure to conform, to uphold the family image, to be the right kind of Trump, it had to take its toll. But what finally made her speak up? Was it a major political moment? A rift within the family? A deeply personal realization that she could no longer live in the shadow of a name she didn't fully identify with? Or was it a slow-burning process? A lifetime of bottled-up emotions, quiet frustrations, and an internal struggle to define herself outside of the Trump empire? Maybe, just maybe, there was a single breaking point. One moment that shattered the illusion of silence. A private argument? A heated disagreement at a high-profile event where she finally refused to simply nod along? Perhaps she saw something behind the scenes that made her question everything. Or maybe it was an encounter with someone outside the Trump bubble, someone who helped her see herself in a different way. The speculation is endless, but one thing is undeniable. If Kai Madison Trump is finally stepping forward, she won't do it quietly. Because in a family where silence has always been the safest option, speaking out is the most radical act of all. How does Vanessa really feel about her daughter stepping into the spotlight with bold new statements? And more importantly, is Donald Trump Jr. willing to stand by her side? Or is this the beginning of a major divide? Vanessa has always been the steady, quiet force ensuring her kids had some sense of normalcy despite the chaos of their last name. But now that Kai is making waves, sources say Vanessa is feeling a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, she's proud. This proves she raised a strong, independent young woman who isn't afraid to speak her mind. But on the other hand, she's terrified. This isn't just any controversy. It's a Trump controversy, and the stakes are sky high. So what's really keeping Vanessa up at night? People close to her say she's worried about the long-term consequences her daughter could face. Kai is still young, and no matter where you stand politically, being a Trump in the public eye is never simple. Could the backlash follow her for years? Could it create obstacles she hasn't even imagined yet? And more than anything, is this something Vanessa feels she could have prevented? There are whispers that Vanessa is reflecting deeply on her parenting choices right now, wondering if she did enough to prepare her daughter for the reality of being a Trump. After years of trying to shield her kids from the family's political firestorm, is she now watching history repeat itself in a way she never expected? She's always focused on keeping her kids grounded, but did Vanessa underestimate just how powerful the Trump name really is? No matter how much she tried to shield Kai, was it always inevitable that her daughter would be pulled into the family's never-ending whirlwind of drama? A mother's worst fear is watching her child struggle, and right now, Vanessa is wrestling with a difficult question. Did she do enough to protect Kai from this chaos? And then there's Donald Trump Jr. We already know he thrives in the spotlight, but how does he really feel about his daughter stepping into it? The burning question: is he standing by her side, or is this creating serious tension between them? If there's one thing about Donald Jr., it's that he doesn't take criticism well, especially when it comes from within his own family. But this isn't just anyone speaking out. This is his daughter, and that changes everything. Insiders say he's torn. On one hand, he wants to defend her. After all, she's his flesh and blood. But on the other, he's frustrated. Some claim he feels completely blindsided, like he didn't see this coming, and now he's stuck doing damage control. It wouldn't be surprising if this has already led to some heated, behind-the-scenes conversations. Could this create a serious rift between father and daughter? Well, let's be real. Donald Jr. expects loyalty. That's just how the Trump family operates. If Kai's words are seen as a direct challenge to the carefully maintained family image, it wouldn't be shocking if he felt betrayed. The Trumps are no strangers to internal power struggles, and it's not hard to imagine this leading to some deep divisions. So the real question now is, will he publicly support her? Or will we start seeing signs of tension, maybe some calculated distance between them in the weeks to come? You can bet people will be watching closely. And where does all of this leave Vanessa? Right now, she's in an impossible position, trying to be both the supportive mother and the peacekeeper. But let's be honest, when she married into the Trump family, this isn't what she signed up for. She never wanted her kids to be caught in the middle of all this political chaos, but now it's happening. And how she handles this moment will say a lot about where she truly stands. Will she step forward to publicly support Kai? Or will she work quietly behind the scenes to smooth things over? We've seen public feuds, loyalty tests, and shifting alliances in this family before. But this is personal. It's about a mother, a father, and a daughter all trying to find their footing in a family where loyalty and controversy go hand in hand. Nobody saw this coming. Kai's statement wasn't just a subtle hint at tension, it was explosive. Reports say she didn't dance around the issue. She called it out directly. Whether her words were aimed at her father, her grandfather, or the entire Trump family brand, one thing is undeniable: she's not biting her tongue. While the full details are still emerging, sources claim that Kai made comments that completely contradict the carefully polished, united front the Trumps have spent years maintaining. And that's a huge deal. The Trump family has spent so much time curating an image of strength, loyalty, and control that any cracks in that facade could spell trouble for them. If Kai is openly challenging that narrative, it's a problem, a big one. Think about it. When was the last time someone this close to the Trump inner circle went off script? This isn't an outsider throwing accusations from the sidelines. This is someone who grew up at the very heart of the Trump dynasty. If she's revealing something, it's coming from the inside, and that carries real weight. And of course, the internet is losing it. On one side, Trump loyalists are absolutely furious. They see this as a betrayal, an attack on the very brand they've spent years defending. Some are brushing her off as misguided, claiming she's been influenced by outside forces. Others are going even further, speculating that she's being used as a pawn by the media or political opponents. But then there's the other side, the critics, the people who have been waiting for someone within the family to finally break rank. They're calling her brave, praising her for speaking up, and even comparing her to other children of political dynasties who have chosen to distance themselves from their family legacies. Is Kai about to become the next outspoken Trump who refuses to follow the script? Some people certainly hope so. And what about Vanessa Trump? She has always been the protective mother, the one who tried to keep her kids away from the relentless political storm. But now that Kai is making headlines, how does she really feel? Is she quietly supporting her daughter from behind the scenes? Or is she trying to do some damage control? One thing's for sure, this story isn't fading away anytime soon. So what do you think? Is Kai making a bold stand for herself? Or could this all come crashing down in a way she never expected?